Hello, I am Allison. I play the trombone, and you, yes, you, have asked me a ton of questions about trombone playing and how to make your trombone playing even better. So I'm here today to look at some of these questions, give you answers to the best of my ability, and hopefully send you on your way with some good ideas on how to practice better. The first question that I have to answer is this one. I think this one is a very, very important and pretty succinct question, and it reads as follows. What are the quote beginner mistakes/bad habits that you made which you wished you didn't make? And I can tell you right now, because I myself, it's not really a mistake per se, but I myself suffered a lot because of this one thing. The number one beginner mistake that players can make is to learn without a teacher. Hear me out. Hear me out. I know in your mind you're going, well, I don't have money. I know. Here's the thing though. Here's the thing. I'm not saying that you need to take a lesson every week, okay? I'm not saying you need to go in and just do an hour long and pay all that money. I'm not saying that. What I am saying though is that it is vitally, I'm talking super duper important to check in with somebody like once every few months just to make sure that the practice techniques that you're employing, that the physical things you are doing to play your instrument are ones that are going to help enable your playing and make your playing even better. And I'll tell you why. I was pretty much 99.9% self-taught until university. I didn't have lessons every single week. I didn't get that. I wasn't able to do that. I just practiced in a basement an hour every day like a little troll, hoping that what I was doing was right. And spoiler alert, a lot of it wasn't. Now, my sight reading got really good, and my pitches and rhythms were great, sure, but my sound wasn't good. My tone was bad, and a lot of my air support was really awful. So what would happen is I would go to like my summer camps. I did do those. I'd go to my summer camp once a year. You'd have your one private lesson in that entire week of summer camp. That's your one time a year lesson. And I would go in, and my teacher would say, well, it's okay, but you're doing this, and this kind of sort of wrong, and you're going to have to relearn how to do every single one of those things. Every single one of those things for me were physical things, my body not moving the way it should. And I didn't catch that stuff because why would I? I was a beginner player. I didn't have that knowledge. I didn't even know what to look for to catch in the first place. And a lot of beginner players don't. It's totally natural to not know what you're even looking for, what to manipulate. So while I don't think you necessarily need classes every single week, and yes, videos like this one where I'm giving you completely free knowledge, they are out there on YouTube and you should use those. But I very passionately believe that you do need to check in with an actual person every so often just to make sure that what you're doing is going in the right direction. Because I'm telling you, I had to change up my entire way of playing like 4 times, the last of which was my last year in college. I have a music performance degree. So I know it sounds a bit like I'm a shill right now, but I do believe please get a teacher every once in a way. That's too many onces, but you know what I mean. Of course, you know this is my actual shill moment. I do teach lessons on lessonface.com. You can come in, you can have a 15-minute free trial with me to just go over a couple specifics you'd like to ask. You're more than welcome to do that. You can also get local teachers. There are university professors nearby that, if they can't teach it themselves, can recommend lots of grad students or undergrad students even that would be more than happy to check in with you. There are local orchestras and there are local jazz bands and there are local band directors who could probably point you in the right direction to some of their colleagues who would be more than happy to sit down with you. So every once in a way, please grab somebody and get some accountability. Make sure what you're doing is actually what you should be doing. And that is the end of my answer for that question. Okay, I promise the rest of these are not going to be nearly so soapboxy. These next questions are actually more kind of specific physical attributes, I guess, of trombone playing. So let's go to the next one. All right, the next question says, tips on high range? Okay, so I have a couple of tips on that. The first tip that I have, and it's really more just information about practicing high range. Look, there's no secret, just do this, that's magically going to make you play higher all the time. You are going to have to work at it. It's a consistency thing. I would say working on high range like 5 minutes or so every single day Probably for a good month or so to really see and feel differences and how easy it is to play high. That's what it's going to take for you to be able to consistently play like first trombone parts all the time. So just, when I tell you these next things, don't go in expecting, oh, well, I'll just do it and then it will happen. That's not how it works at all. You probably know that, but I want to be sure. So for high range, there are a few factors that I think are pretty crucial. The first thing is, you've already seen it if you've watched my YouTube short, and that is about the center of the lips. This is the biggest issue I have seen with trombone players, and I've been teaching for a good 10 plus years now. The number one thing I see with trombone players that we're doing, and we don't mean to, is taking the center and pushing it out like you're giving grandma a kiss on the cheek. This kind of thing. If we roll the lips outward like that, it is going to ruin everything. And if you're trying to play high, you will suffer and the note won't come out. So what I suggest first is taking the center, just the whole thing, and rolling it in some like this. Looks dumb, but it works. The next thing you want to do is you want to think about your corners. Corners, I think, for me, whenever you play high, it's kind of like saying, oops, I'm sorry, I broke your iPhone. That's kind of the direction you need to start. So for me, it kind of goes either down or straight back towards the ears or some combination of both. The next thing you want to think about is the vowel shape inside your mouth. And I actually think somebody had asked me, I don't have the question with me, but somebody had asked me about doubling on trumpet. And this is a really, really big tip for doubling on trumpet, is that the inside of your mouth, you want to think about the vowel shape, the actual vowel you're saying while you play. When we normally play, you usually want an oh, like just a big OH, oh, because that makes your sound really beautiful and nice. When you play really high, you want to think E, 2 E's in a row, E. And what that's going to do is it's going to bring the back of your tongue towards the top of your mouth, and it's going to make the air move faster for some weird acoustical reason, and it's going to make high notes way easier. Just try it. And the last thing, I probably shouldn't tell you for free, but I'm going to tell you anyway, is that you want to play around with your air direction when you're playing anything. Now, for me personally, when I'm playing high, I like to take my bottom lip and roll it inward a little bit, and I want to point my air somewhere. In this case, playing high notes, I want to blow my air down. It's like I want to blow my air straight down my shirt while I play, and that should help a good bit as to where you need to go. So doing all that stuff, and of course, blow really hard. Okay, that too. But doing all of those things, you should instantly see some difference, I think. If you do all that stuff and play around with those parameters, you should immediately see a difference in how easy it might be to play high. But as I mentioned at the very beginning, you want to make sure to practice your high range all day, every day, at least 5 minutes, because if you don't do it consistently, you'll never get the muscle strength that you need to play that high. So that is my very short high range masterclass, I guess. Okay, and the next question is another sort of physical trombone play-y thing. It reads as follows: tell me how to tongue fast, crying smile emoji. Okay, so, yeah, this one's a little tougher, I guess. So, I guess for me, there's a couple of things. The first thing, though, I'm going to talk about briefly is tongue placement. Now, I can't really tell you exactly where to put the tongue in your mouth, but I will say that in my experience, I have met a lot of learners and students who play with their tongue, with the tip of the tongue touching the bottom teeth. And I can tell you that, at least in my experience, hearing anyone who does that, it never works. It never works. Never, never. It's awful. It slows you down. It makes your tongue flap around in there in a really weird way, and it's just not conducive. And I know this because if you, right now, you're going to repeat after me, okay? If you say the word butter, like what you put on toast, butter, butter, okay? Now we're going to pretend that we're Hamtaro and say it really fast. Butter, 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 butter. Think about where the tip of your tongue is. Is it at the bottom of your mouth? No, it's at the top of your mouth. When we say the letter T, when we say the letter D, your tongue, right? It's always at the top. So that should tell us, right, that when we're doing it in the trombone, we shouldn't change that up. It's worked fine for us your whole life saying it like that. So I suggest that you start there and try to do it that way in the mouthpiece. That's going to take you a really long way. The other thing that is really, really, really going to help you play fast is blowing fast. I mean, when we want to do something quickly, the airstream has got to match. blow really fast air, mess around with the tongue placement, and then you just want to relax the tongue a little bit more the faster you play. Because if you keep the tongue really tense and try to go, you're basically going to be holding yourself up. You're creating tension where there doesn't need to be any. Really, the only tension you should have most of the time, I think, is in the diaphragm, that big muscle below your belly button. And that's because you're going to be blowing air so hard that it should, in theory, do the rest of the work for you. So that's what I would suggest. Blow fast air, play around with tongue placement, and relax the tongue just a little bit. And that should get you in a good starting place to articulate faster. I wonder if my hair is going to dry by the end of this video. What do you think? Place your bets now. Okay, the next question is about another sort of extended articulation technique, and it reads as thus: how do you growl / flutter tongue? Another crying, smiling emoji. Just looking for as many tips as possible. I struggle rolling R's too. So I have some good news and bad news. The bad news is I can't really roll my R's either. Actually, when I learned how to roll R's, it's when I was taking Spanish in college, and it was like one of maybe 2 semesters I took, and I just sat and tried to do it for, I'm talking 2 weeks, all the time. Every spare moment I had was me going to try to make it work. And actually, funny enough, flutter tonguing I learned how to do from that word butter that we practiced a minute ago. Butter, butter, butter. That's I believe like a little, like a flap something. I can't remember the word for it. If you say butter and then you say the der part 3 times, butter, 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 that's kind of like the starting point of the flutter tongue. And you sort of have to keep your tongue in that position and then blow really hard. Butter, 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 and then it kind of starts. And then for me, I have to move the tip of the tongue a little bit farther forward in the mouth, like where it's like touching my 2 front teeth. Butter, 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 and then it kind of starts to come out. I'm not very good at it though. I can't actually do it in Spanish speaking very much at all, but that's the way I learned. I don't know if that will help you. For growling, essentially growling is kind of like earlier where I said to say the E shape. E is like putting the back of the tongue towards the top of your mouth. You want to do that, E, and then you want to sort of relax the tongue, E. And then you just want to blow out really hard. E. Kind of like when you're trying to purr like a cat. That's if you're able to do that. That's basically what I do when I imitate a cat purring. If you can do that, then it's just a matter of doing long tones in the trombone and just trying to do that while you're playing. And I don't really have good advice on how to do that. And I'm going to be quite frank, I can't really flutter tongue either when I'm playing trombone especially. So I'm probably not the best authority for this, but that's it's passable when I do it. So I would say just do those things and then just do long tones and try to see if you can get the sound to come out while you play. And that's about all I have for you. Okay, so speaking of long tones, I have another question here that's quite good, and it reads, how the heck do I work on tone in the beginning? And that's a really good, wonderful question. That's really the right question to ask because, look, you can play as fast as you want, and you can play as impressively as you like, but if your tone is bad, it will be noticed, and most people will say they were good, and that but is going to follow you everywhere. Phrasing. Anyway, tone for me is by far the most important thing that you need to focus on when you're playing. And if you can develop that tone very early in the beginning, that is the best time to do it because everything you do after that is just going to enhance the beautiful sound that you already have. Who cares if you're only playing whole notes? If they sound good, I would rather listen to that, I'll be honest. So the most important thing to do, I think, when developing tone was actually 2 things. So for tone specifically, I cannot stress the importance of long tones enough. Holding long tones. And I have to specify just a little bit because I feel like when I do long tones, I kind of fall into this trap where I'll just pick middle F and just middle F, and then I'm like, okay, I'm fine. It's very important that you do long tones in the middle range. in the very low range, in the mid-high range, in the very high range. I feel like it's important to do all those things. You'll find that depending on how high or low or how middle you're playing, your technique is going to change. Your air is going to change. Your air direction and whatever the mouth is doing and all that stuff, it will change slightly. And I think it's important to take that time to make sure everything is running how it should in all ranges. So that's the first thing, do long tones. The second thing you should do, this is very important, and this is something that I myself have recently learned as a recording artist who now makes my own music, is that you should record yourself. You should record yourself all the time. You do not have to record yourself with a mic like that. You don't need to. Take your phone, voice memo, turn it on, put it like 6 feet away from you, go across the room, play anything, not just long tones, play anything. Go back, get the phone, and listen to yourself, because when we're playing, our brains are kind of busy, you know? I always call it whack-a-mole, because when you're thinking about this one thing, then this other thing goes, and then you have to think about that, and then the first thing went, because playing is hard, okay? We're trying to coordinate lots of things, we're trying to be beautiful and musical, but we're also trying to get our body to do the freaking thing. And sometimes it's really hard to do all that, and then also really hear what's coming out the other side of the bell. Now, I know that it's a horrible thing to do. I know for a lot of people, it's just like speaking like this, right? I'm talking, and when I go back and edit this, supposedly I'm supposed to hate how I sound, right? But I can tell you, I've been doing these videos a long time. I've been recording my voice a long time, and you get used to it. And eventually you're going to hear it as just an objective thing that you can look at and say, okay, do I like this? Do I not like this? And it is important to look at what you do like as well as what you don't like, by the way. Please always do that, because if you only focus on the negative, it's not going to be a good time for you. So, point being, do long tones. Do them in every range and record them. Record them because, again, that's going to give you the best sense of what is going wrong. And you should do this every time you play anyway. You should do it for everything. If you're doing a solo, if you're doing an etude, if you're doing scales, record yourself. And especially if you can't get a teacher, if you don't want to pay for a teacher, okay, fine, don't. But you need to record yourself. I'm telling you, because you won't catch stuff unless you start doing this. And what's good is that it's going to train your ear too. So eventually you will be able to hear while you play. But even if you can do that, again, for me, I catch stuff all the time when I record myself and I go, oh, that take was bad. Or I'll do something and say, I thought I was really emoting there. I thought this was really passionate and it sounds dumb. So I have to go back and fix it. So those are my two pieces of advice for tone. Long tones, record yourself. Next question. I wax on about things, you know, so I'm trying really hard not to get off topic because so many of these things are interrelated, aren't they? So I keep feeling like I want to shoot and go that way and talk about that for a while, but have to focus on one question at a time. I think for now, that's most questions that are about like the physical things. But I do have one more that kind of lies in this sort of similar category, and it reads as such. I just started playing trombone again after 20 years off. I was all state my sophomore, junior, and senior years, congrats, in high school, and things are coming back slowly. I find myself trying to play things I used to play with ease and getting a wee bit discouraged. Any tips? And I really wanted to touch on this question because I'm not sure if any of you know this. A lot of you are new, so you might not know this about me. I actually took a hiatus from music completely. I quit trombone, I quit music, I quit singing, I quit doing anything for about 8 years. 8 years. I didn't play anything. I didn't make anything. I didn't want to, for reasons I won't get into today. But the point is, I didn't play trombone at all. And so I know a little bit about this, about taking a hiatus. The good news is, whether it is 5 years, 8 years, 20 years, at least for me, I found it doesn't matter that much because you'll find that things will come back to you. If you played well in the past, you will find that as you play, things will pick up again. I will say, though, it doesn't happen very quickly. And when I started playing again after 8 years, it took a good maybe 6 to 10 months before I really started feeling good when I put the mouthpiece on my face. That being said, there are a lot of ways that you can kind of ease back into it. First thing I would say, of course, don't go too hard, too fast. Don't do that, because what happens is if you don't have endurance, which you will not have after playing that long, you're going to play things for too long. You're going to play too fast, too hard. And then what's going to happen is your face is going to swell up. You're basically going to injure yourself. And then you're going to have to go about 3 days without playing at all. And that's not really great. And I don't really like that kind of method. So my advice would be, as frustrating as it is at first, don't play things that are wild. If you want to play stuff you used to, just play down the octave. Don't play super high yet. Don't play super loud yet. You need consistency more than you need that stuff. And I know that's not the fun answer, but it is the answer. So I think that, doing things like long tones, playing easier bits, play some Roshu, play some Roshu, play down the octave some, do things like that. But most importantly, do not play too long each time. And I know that me telling you that is awful, and I know it sucks. I know because I went through it. I wanted to play for an hour every day, and what I would do is I would go in too hard. I would literally blow out my face. Like I would play a note and I would feel my face go, doo, and the muscles would give out. And then I would have to go 3 days without playing at all. And I'm telling you, it's much more fun to be able to play every day a little bit. I would say about 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes, just play some simple stuff. If you want to go a little crazy, then you can, but don't go over it. Don't do that, because if you do, you're going to regret it. Then after like 6 to 10 months of doing that, right, you're going to feel yourself getting stronger. And then you can kind of ease back into it. Maybe spend like 5-10 minutes of those 30, whatever. Maybe play a little bit something harder, play a little high, do stuff like that. And then after a year, you're going to find you can do it more and more. So that's really my advice. Just be consistent. And don't overexert yourself. Take your time. I know it's frustrating at first because I went through it very recently myself, but I can tell you that that is going to be the best way for you to get back into playing shape consistently and strongly. Strongly. That's a word, right? And bigly and all those other words. Yes. Good luck on your journey. I feel you. I've been there. I wish you the best of luck. Have fun. Hair check. I think we're getting close to dry now. I think, right? Look at that. Poof. Okay. All right. The next question is kind of interesting. I don't know how physical this is, but it reads as, what are your tricks to getting resonance when you play? Plugins. Plugins. Honestly, though, I do play in a closet most of the time. So for me, the real answer is plugins. I play in a closet, so it's really hard to get much resonance. But that's a really interesting question. So my guesses for that, because I assume what you mean by resonance is like how the sound carries and lingers in the air after you play notes. I'm assuming that's what you mean. So it's a really acoustical thing, I feel. I could be wrong. Again, I'm not like a super amazing Joe Alessi trombonist, so I could be wrong on this. I don't really know if there's something I do physically with my playing to make resonance happen. I know you can get it from your venue. I know you can get it from plugins. I think that, if you're going for that, I think that the richer the sound is, personally, I feel like the richer the sound is, the more resonance you might get. If the sound is thin or foofy or staticky, the resonance isn't going to be nearly as strong, right? Because resonance is made by the bell vibrating that sends the sound out into the world, I think, right? So I think having a very rich tone would help you do that, I think, I guess. And there's a couple ways to do that, of course. First, do long tones. Second, you can play around with the mouthpiece, of course. I feel personally to get a very rich sound, you might want a mouthpiece with a slightly deeper cup. You can go to my other video and look at all the trombones and mouthpieces I have, and I'll talk about it more there. But mouthpiece can help. And actually, for me, I was told that the Shires that I have, my Shires Custom, again, it's also in my other video, the bell that I have, which is the Colin Williams bell, they told me that it's got like an unsoldered bead, whatever. Again, I don't know. They just told me it would make the sound more resonant, so I bought it. I'm not a brass tech. I don't know. But they said because there was some unsoldered something, it allowed for more vibration in the bell that makes the sound more resonant. So could be that getting a different bell could help with that. But I think that it starts with the sound. I think it starts with your own sound. So I'd say work on the tone, make it very, very rich, and then go from there. Next question is a really fun one. It's a gear question, and I actually felt kind of bad because I didn't show this off in my gear video last time, so I'm going to read this one. This says, thank you for the post. You're welcome. My questions are, do you normally use a trombone grip of any kind or recommend it to your students? Do you work out slash stretch the muscles involved in playing the instrument? Cool. So I'll answer the last question first. I don't really stretch at all. I probably should. There are times though there are times where I do think that stretching can help, and that's doing breathing exercises. And I've got a friend actually that made me lay on the floor for like 45 minutes, and we did breathing stretching exercises where you lay on the floor with your back on the floor and you breathe all the way in from the belly button. You expand your entire bottom half of your torso like you're trying to inflate like an inflatable ring or something, and then you fill all the way up to the chest and you breathe back out, and you do that a few times, and then you lift a leg and you kind of move it to the side. You're basically making an L with your legs, and then you do the same thing. Point being is, if you do these very deep breaths while lying on the floor, eventually you're going to feel that these muscles in your back, on either side of your lower back, you're going to feel them get closer to the floor because they're going to elongate and everything. So that can be good to do, and it will also help your breathing quite a lot. And even if you don't want to do stretches or anything, this goes for anybody who plays trombone. You need to lie on your back and breathe. Breathe naturally on your back. You're going to find that your belly is what moves up and down and not your chest. That is what you need to engage first when you play. Breathing out of your chest, no, don't do that. So that's what I would say for stretches. And in terms of trombone grips, I actually have a couple. I have a Yamaha strap that I like decently well. You put it on the mouthpiece and then you kind of wrap it around and then you strap it over your hand. It basically spreads the weight across the back of your hand. I like that one pretty well. I've got a Get a Grip. It's by this guy called Sheridan, and I think if you just type Sheridan Get a Grip on Google, it should come up. He's an older guy now, but he makes them from scratch. I like that one pretty well, and it just kind of snaps onto your trombone. I like that one. And I've also heard, especially with bass trombone players, they talk about there's like a wrath brace that they use that you actually like bolt onto the trombone that spreads the weight across the back of your hand. Especially if you play the bass trombone, you should have some sort of apparatus because that weight can seriously do some harm to your left half of your body if you don't have something there. So any of those are fine. There's also the ergobone, which is weird. It's like a stick that you put down on your chair, and it basically props the trombone up for you. And it's really popular, I think, with trombonists who have suffered some sort of injury, or if you got like a contrabass trombone, something crazy like that, you can use an ergobone. And I've heard a lot of people love them. Of course, there's some people that don't. So really, it's just kind of doing your own research and figuring out what you might like. And sometimes it just takes buying one and trying it. I mean, I bought a ProTech one and I didn't really care for it. It didn't really sit on my trombone right. It didn't really fit my tiny baby hand, and I just didn't care for it. So yeah, that's what I would say with those. I've got the Yamaha and I've got the Sheridan for myself. The next question is about practicing. This is not just for trombone players. This is for literally anybody, I think, doing music. And it reads, what's the best way to learn a hard song and how to manage it when there is a deadline? Now, I'm going to break this down as quickly as I can, and I'm not going to go too deeply into it, but there's two things you need to know when you practice. Slow it down. Break it down. You must do these things if you want to get better. I have had so many learners come in and just play the same song from the beginning to the end as fast as they can, and messing up the same places over and over, and it just sounds like a complete mess, and it just never changes, right? So I think that if you can slow down with a metronome or by yourself and break it down. Don't play the beginning every time. Don't do that because you're not practicing that. You're just playing it, right? We need to pinpoint the parts that we have the most trouble with, and we need to work on those. If that's 2 notes, it's 2 notes. If it's a measure, it's a measure. You need to break it down as much as you can. So that's the first 2 things. Slow it down, break it down. Other stuff I would do, especially if there's a deadline, right? We have to make up our priorities. You need to get the rhythm and pitches right, which come from the first 2 points I mentioned a second ago. And then after that, you have to go into your dynamics and your style and all that stuff. So the only other piece of advice I really have is when you're practicing, you need to have a specific goal in your mind as you play each time, and it will change. And when you're focusing on one of those things, like this time, my dynamics are going to be wonderful. If you miss some pitches, right? Of course, you're going to fix them later, fine, but don't get caught up on that stuff. If you're focusing on dynamics, and if the dynamics were beautiful and awesome and exactly the way you wanted to, then you'll just go back and fix those pitches next time. Don't fret because one thing went wrong when you were focusing on something else. That's very, very important because it's really easy in this kind of field to get discouraged. Because every time we're playing, we're just continuously trying to beat ourselves down and figuring out what went wrong. Please don't do that. Because if you do, you're going to hate practicing a lot, number one. It's going to really blow and you're just not going to want to do it, right? But also it is important to develop your musical ear to find what did go right. That is developing your ear. You need to be able to hear that stuff. What went right as well as what went wrong, because if you can't, then it's going to be harder to discern things, right? And then your practice won't be efficient. So that's what I would say is, yeah, those two things: slow down, break it down, and then also have runs where you're focusing on specific things and only focus on those things. Focus on dynamics this time. Or sometimes do performance runs where I'm like, I'm going to start from the beginning and go to the end. And I don't care what happens. I don't care if I mess up a pitch. I don't care if this one thing didn't work out. I will play to the end, by golly, and I will just power through, because that's what you're going to have to do in a performance, right? That's another way to practice it. So yeah, I think if you do all those things and prioritize correctly, then by the deadline, you should be good. Good luck, whatever it is. I've got one more question today. We've actually answered a couple of these parts, but I'm going to read it anyway. This says, hello, I'm a new subscriber. Hello, thank you for subscribing. Hope you like my stuff. And I was wondering what you recommend for improving range, talked about it, sight reading, and playing by ear. I'm in my 5th year of trombone, by the way. Congrats on your 5th year. Honestly, making it through the first 5, I commend you, because the first few years of trombone, they're very unforgiving, they're very hard. So congrats to you on that. So first I'm going to talk about sight reading. This is going to be the worst answer you've ever heard. The answer to sight reading better is to do it a lot. Now, don't worry, I'm going to get into some kind of guidelines, but the real answer is you have to do it a lot. Look, when you read a book, when you read a magazine, when you're reading your phone right now, when you're reading on your phone to watch this video, how did you learn to do that? Right? How'd you learn to look at all these weird squiggles and then put them together into words and then put them together into sentences? Your school, most likely, made you read a crap ton when you were a very small child. You had to read all these accelerated reader books over and over. Your parents made you read bedtime stories every single night for eons, right? Until your brain just started to acknowledge, oh, these shapes are words and they are phrases. The same exact thing goes for sight reading. Eventually, what you're going to do is you're going to stop seeing individual notes and you're going to see groups of notes and say, oh, that's just a scale. Okay. And you're just going to register it as a scale. And then you just have to suss out the rhythm, right? You're going to start seeing groups of notes that are specific rhythms. And you're going to say, oh, I remember how that rhythm goes. It goes like this. And then you just have to match the pitches to it. Okay. So you need to do it a lot. Now, there is a website. It's called Sight Reading Factory. It does cost money, but you can just quit it like Netflix. You can just get it for a month and then quit. But what's cool about it is that you can sight read. They'll just keep providing you completely random sight readings. They're randomly generated. They're infinite. And you can control the parameters. Like, I only want to play in the key of F. I only want to mess around with these rhythms today. And it will curate that for you. There are other ways to do it. You don't have to pay, okay? You can go to MuseScore and just look up random junk that people write. Be careful, though, because when people write things on MuseScore, a lot of folks don't know how to engrave music. So the rhythms will be incredibly difficult to read. Not saying the rhythms are wrong, but there are set rules on how to write music on paper. And sometimes when it's not written in a very conducive way, it's going to blow your brain. And I know because it happens to me all the time. So you can do stuff like that. You can go to YouTube and look up solos and the sheet music will come up and you can follow along. There are different ways to do it. But if you just want like infinite, make me better at sight reading now, Sight Reading Factory is a really good way to do it. Now, I'm going to talk about the guidelines for sight reading because I know just saying do it isn't really a good instruction. So there's a couple things you can do. Number one is learn your scales. Okay, learn your scales, but don't just learn your scales. Don't do that, because if you only learn them that way, that means that you're just gonna memorize this thing you learn and you're not gonna actually apply it to anything. Learn your scales in intervals, in thirds, da 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 da. Learn it in fourths, da 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 da, and so on. What that's gonna do is it's going to start associating intervals in your mind. And an interval is how far apart two notes are. So a third, 3 notes apart, or a fourth, 4 notes apart. If you play your scales like that in each key, when you look at actual real sheet music, which is not just scales, it's a lot of intervals, right? When you look at a new piece of music, you're going to see two notes, like a D going up to a G, and you're going to go, up, that's a fourth, bop, bop, and you're going to instantly know that you're going to stay in fourth position because you've already done it, because you practice scales in that format. So that's the first thing I would say. Then I would say just practice playing things in different keys. Can you play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in the key of B flat? Of course you can. Can you play in the key of B natural? Can you do that with no music? If you can do any of that stuff, then when you go to play stuff you've never seen before, you're going to be comfortable navigating in the different keys. And that is the key, get it? To playing stuff really well when you've never seen it before. So those are the first steps. I got more stuff, but that's enough. Take lessons with me. Or I'll make another video later and I'll get deeper into it, but I'm hungry. It's lunchtime. And the very last thing is about ear training. And I'm really glad that this person brought it up because ear training is a very vital part to playing better. The first thing I would say to you, sing, sing, sing with a swing. Do it all the time. I don't care, but I don't wanna. I don't care, but I'm not able. I don't care, but I don't care. Sing. Do it anyway, but I'm not going to be that mean. Don't do it in front of people, okay? Just sing in the shower or sing in a closet away from people. Don't try to sing like Justin Bieber or anything. Just regular sing. Sing the pitches. Da, 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 da. It doesn't have to be Oscar winning, okay? But you do need to be able to do stuff like this because if you can't sing it, how are you going to play it? If you can't hear in your mind how it's supposed to go, and if you can't match that with your voice, then how are you supposed to do it with the slide, right? So sing stuff. Not only that, singing is really important to make sure you know what you want to do with a song. How do I want to phrase this, right? If I sing happy birthday, I'm not going to sing happy birthday to you. No, you sing happy birthday to you, right? You phrase things, even if you don't know it. Then when you go to play it, then you can match that. So sing for those reasons. That's my first step. Second step, practice intervals. This is step 1. Go to YouTube and type like music interval practice. Can you sing a major third going down, which is 2 notes that are 3 notes apart? It sounds like this. Ding dong. It's a doorbell. Ding dong. Can you hear that in your mind? Ding dong. And then can you play it? Bum, bum. Being able to hear your intervals in your head. And there are tons of resources on YouTube on how to remember intervals and what songs you can use to hear it in your mind. Do all that. And then see if you can emulate it on your trombone. See if you can play it in different keys. Ding dong. Still a third, right? But it's a different key. Do all of that first. That's really going to help you audiate, which is hearing things in your mind. It's going to help you audiate things before you play it. And that's really what we need to do when we're playing in general. And it's going to help you when you sight read also, I think. I think that's it for now. That's most of the questions I want to answer for today. Of course, I can always do another video in the future. But yeah, I really like these questions. This was really fun to sit down and kind of talk about these things. I really hope that some of this was useful to you. Again, though, my biggest thing is just check in every now and then with a teacher. It does not have to be me, okay? Look, I'm not going to take it personally, but if it's not me, just somebody locally, or again, even somebody online. Trombone is one instrument where you really don't have to be in person. I know that sounds like I'm just trying to sell stuff to you. I promise it's not. Everything that happens with the trombone playing is in the mouthpiece. It all has to be heard to diagnose. You don't have to be there physically. So if you just want to sign up with an online teacher for 10 minutes just to check in, I really encourage you to do that because it's the fastest way you're going to catch things. It's the fastest way you're going to get a new perspective and walk away with something that you can integrate into your own playing. So do all that stuff. Of course, use the internet for all your resources. Of course, ask me questions. I will answer questions. I will, I promise. So ask me stuff if you need to, and I guess that's it. Yeah, I really hope that you're enjoying your trombone journey. I hope that some of this helped you, and I'll see you next time, I guess. Yeah. Bye! Is this where I have to have an outro? Like, slide you later? No, no, no. I'm gonna go eat lunch now. Goodbye.